As human beings, we were made to worship God. Every human being has the sense of the divine inside of us. We are desiring to know our Creator, to know the all-powerful Lord. And worship is one way that we build our relationship with God, or that we come to know God. And worship is good for us. It equips us for this life. It sustains us through the highs and through the lows. And the Bible teaches us that there are layers of worship. And I've shown this in a sermon before, but I think it's important for us to understand that first of all, there's life worship. We offer our bodies as living sacrifices to God. That 24/7 we are called to worship the Lord by living out His righteousness. But at the core of that life worship is church worship, what we do together in the assembly of believers, or the ecclesia. And John Calvin helps us out with understanding what worship should look like. And in the Institutes of the Christian Religion, he says that when we gather together in the assembly, that there should, according to the Bible, be preaching, singing, praying, observing of the Lord's Supper, and baptism. That those are essential, that God has commanded us to observe those and to do those together to help us better understand Him and His plan for our lives. But beyond that, Calvin admits that there is freedom, and that churches must adjust based on their age and location and the time they are in to help people worship the Lord in a genuine and authentic way. This is what Calvin writes. The Lord has, in His sacred oracles, faithfully embraced and clearly expressed both the whole sum of true righteousness and all aspects of the worship of His majesty, and whatever was necessary to salvation. Therefore, in these the Master alone is to be heard. But because He did not will in outward discipline and ceremonies to prescribe in detail what we ought to do, because He foresaw that this depended upon the state of the times, and He did not deem one form suitable for all ages, here we must take refuge in those general rules which He has given, that whatever the necessity of the church will require for order and decorum should be tested against these. So Calvin is very clear. God speaks to us through these essentials of worship, but beyond that, the Lord did not describe in detail how Christians ought to worship, because in God's providence and sovereignty, He knew that cultures would be different, and that times would change, and that people would think differently. And He has given us the Holy Spirit to guide us in how we are to plan and execute worship services to bring about the worship of the Majesty. Calvin says we should follow these general rules that the Lord has given, but beyond that, we need to trust the Spirit so that we can lead worship and participate in worship based on where we are, so we can know Christ, proclaim Him, and follow Him.